I'll be explaining in this tutorial video how you can move your Poké radar chains from one field of grass to a different one without breaking your chain in the process. I'll also be covering all of the instances in X and Y where I believe this tactic to be applicable. So I personally refer to this tactic of moving radar chains from one field to another as migration. And while migration does only have niche applications in Generation 6 radar chaining, it can be useful for two reasons. Firstly, in routes where the encounter table percentages widely differ between the different grass or flower types, it can be practical to start your chain where the Pokemon you are interested in hunting is most common, followed by immediately migrating your chain to a larger field of grass more suitable for chaining. Secondly, it can sometimes be practical to use migration to change up your strategy mid-chain. Our ability to move chains around is restricted by the fact that there is a limit to how far we can walk before our chain breaks. This limit is 18 steps away from the last tile the radar was activated. So you can think of this as another zone. When the radar is activated, it generates Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3, and Zone 4, where the shaking patches spawn. In addition, all the way out here is this 37 by 37 tile square, which I guess could be referred to as Zone 18. And stepping onto one of those tiles will instantly break your chain. So as you can see, this is pretty generously far, and there are a lot of interesting things we can do within this limit. And if we were to reset, say here for example, you can see that Zone 18 extends all the way up past this field of flowers up here. So we can freely migrate between these two fields of flowers without our chain breaking. And just to demonstrate, our chain will break if we were to step on this tile. As you can hear, the radar music is now gone. So migrating chains is as simple as that. What I'm going to do for the rest of this video is go over all of the routes in X and Y where this is at least somewhat useful. The first example I'd like to cover is at Route 10. So if you look at the encounter tables for Route 10, you'll see that there is a considerable difference in encounter rates between the grass and the yellow flowers. So if you want to chain Golett, Sigilif, or Hawlucha, you should start your chain in the grass, whereas Snubbull, Eevee, and Houndour or Electrike are more common in the yellow flowers, so if you want to chain one of those, it's better to start your chain there. But we don't want to chain in the yellow flowers, because this field of yellow flowers that's down here is tiny. So instead what we want to do is immediately migrate our chain after finding the first Pokemon of our chain. Alright, so here's an Eevee. This migration is particularly useful for Eevee since there is a big difference between a 5% encounter rate and a 20% encounter rate, so it can save you a lot of time finding an Eevee to start your chain. Alright, so from here we can't make it all the way to my recommended chaining spot because that's too far, and we can't make it up here either because that's also a bit too far. So what we want to do is first change our reset tile to here. And then from here we can make it up to here. And then from here we can now make it to my recommended chaining spot. And our chain was never broken at any point, so we should still be in an Eevee chain right now. So this encounter here should be an Eevee. And it is. And obviously you can keep migrating further up the route if you prefer chaining up there. At Route 8, we have this field of yellow flowers here that's in between the two fields of grass that it's practical to chain in. Mienfoo and Absol are more common in the yellow flowers, so if you really want to chain either of those, it is worth it to start your chain in the yellow flowers, followed by migration. Alright, so here's an Absol. So the migration is simple enough if you want to chain in a smaller field of grass, since it's just right here. But you may think that the field of grass to the south is a bit too far away for this to work. But as you can see, it's actually just barely close enough to make it without needing to reset on any edges. So to migrate successfully, you need to reset on the southmost not edge yellow flower tile, so right here. And then from here we can just move down. And right here, this is 17 steps exactly. So as you can see, we can just barely make it without resetting on any edges. So it's very possible to freely move your chain between these two fields of grass at any point during your chain. And this does open up the possibility of changing up your strategy mid-chain. So if you're chaining here, for example, you can just reset on this tile. Then migrate up. And reset on this yellow flower tile here. And then move up to here. So you can do this to change up your strategy mid-chain. It's not something I particularly recommend doing, but the option is here if you want to for whatever reason. It may not be obvious which of these two fields of yellow flowers it's best to chain in at Route 12. The correct answer is to use both, and because they are so close to each other, we can easily migrate our chain between them in order to chain as optimally as possible. So this field is a bit larger than the other one. However, since it's only 6 tiles wide, we can't get this number to be any higher than a 3 or 4 without resetting on an edge, so it's not very useful for grinding safe patches. But the overall number of 3 and 4 zone grass tiles is decent, so you will be able to build chains pretty fast here if you take risks. Alternatively, this field is a bit smaller, but it is at least 7 tiles wide and long, and because of that, we can get this number to be either a 6 or a 7 if we reset optimally, and is therefore much better for grinding safe patches. So an effective strategy is to start your chain in the larger field. Take some risks early on to quickly build your chain. When your chain length gets to the point that you no longer want to take risks, migrate your chain over here to grind out safe patches until you reach 40. Once at 40, it's optimal to migrate back to the larger field of grass to reset for shiny patch, where the odds are better. At Route 18, this field of red flowers and this field of grass are just close enough that you can freely migrate between them. So if our reset point is here, you'll see that all of the grass tiles within the 17-step limit are edges. So this is going to require resetting on at least one edge. So the safest edge to reset on is this one here, which has approximately a 0.38% chance of breaking your chain. So it isn't much of a risk really. So just move your chain between these two tiles to migrate. So migration isn't terribly useful at Route 18. But since both of these fields of grass are usable for chaining, you have the option to change the other one mid-chain if you want to for whatever reason. And the encounter rates do change a bit between the grass and flowers as well. So Gerda and Torkoal are more common in the grass, whereas Lairon or Pupitar and Sandslash are more common in the red flowers. So, for example, if you really want to chain Gerda but you don't like chaining in the grass, you can start your chain in the grass to find a Gerda, then immediately migrate to the red flowers and chain there. We don't need to move very far for this one, but I will just quickly mention that at Route 15, Watchog and Cornyard are more common in the red flowers, so if you want to chain either of those, then you may as well start your chain in the red flowers, followed by migration to the grass. Chain migration is only useful at Route 21 if you want to chain Ursaring. So Ursaring's encounter rate is 40% in the red flowers compared to only 10% in the purple flowers, so if you really want to chain Ursaring, starting your chain in the red flowers could save you a lot of time finding an Ursaring to chain. So the best way I've found to do this migration is to start your chain here to find an Ursaring. Alright, so here's an Ursaring. Then we want to move up here. So we want to reset on this red flower tile here. So resetting at this edge has about an 18% chance of breaking your chain. So your chain very well may just break if you try this, but if it didn't, then you'll see that the southmost purple flower tiles here are just within the 17-step limit. So from here we can migrate up. So this is 17 steps up exactly, so we have to reset on one of these edges now to successfully migrate. So our safest option is to reset here, which has about a 4% chance of breaking our chain. So yeah, that's probably the least terrible way to migrate at Route 21. It's still kind of dodgy since you have to reset on two edges. But since the encounter rate for Ursaring is so much higher in the red flowers, it's still arguably worth doing. And finally, we return to Route 4, where migration will be near essential. There are two different usable fields of flowers for chaining at Route 4, and to build chains as effectively as possible, you should be making full use of both of them. So this field is larger, and the edge patches are a lot safer, so you will be able to build chains faster here. However, there are no safe 4-zone grass tiles here at all, so chaining here is always risky. Alternatively, this field is smaller and the edge patches are riskier, and therefore we have less decent options overall, but there is one single safe 4-zone grass tile to work with, as well as an enclosed 3-zone grass tile. So chains will build very slowly here, but more reliably. So much like Route 12, the strategy here is to chain in the larger field early on. Take a lot of risks to build your chain more quickly, and when your chain length gets to the point that you no longer want to take risks, then migrate up here, and slowly grind out safe patches until you reach 40. Once at 40, you then want to migrate back down. And reset here for Shiny Patch, where the odds are better. I'd recommend making sure that your last reset tile was the northmost, not edge flower tile before you migrate. So here, that will give you one extra tile of leeway to work with for the migration. If the bottom flower was your last reset tile, so here, then you won't be able to make it up all the way before your chain breaks. Okay, that will conclude this tutorial. These are really the only places in X and Y where chain migration is applicable. In all other routes, it's either not possible or not useful. Hopefully you found this informative. Thanks for watching.